buildings or C-69 or tanker bans, that is a record they can't run away from. I've seen nothing to indicate that they're going to change course on that. In fact, the new Prime Minister has written his book on values, and one of his values is to phase out the oil and gas industry. So what I have been asking for is an election right away. We need to make sure that whichever way this gets resolved, that we have somebody at the table for 4 years who can negotiate a renewed Canada-US free trade agreement so that we can end this back and forth on a tariff war, which is benefiting no one. So I would hope to see an election call very soon.
Okay, and any budget adjustments for MLA Sinclair up in Lesser Slave Lake, who's complained there's not enough money going back into his jurisdiction?
Well, I think MLA Sinclair didn't have full information. As you can see, what we do is we do blanket announcements for high-level budget, and then we do the granular announcements. In Lesser Slave Lake, there's $134 million of a total $239 million towards the road project that he identified in his post. That's Highway 88, which is absolutely a priority. There's 2 new schools that will be built in his riding, and there's also an upgraded to an EMS station. But we know that there's need all over the province, and so we've got to make sure that we balance that. I wish we could build every school that was needed everywhere all at once, and every road that was needed everywhere all at once. We can't. We have to stage it. We've got about $8 billion a year in our capital plan. We try to be very fair between Calgary and Edmonton, northern, central, and south. And in fact, in the transportation budget, the largest share of it is going to northern Alberta. We've got some big projects up there to make sure that we can start building a pathway to get between Grand Prairie and Fort McMurray, as well as a second road to be able to get out of Fort McMurray in the case of deadly fires. So I would say that everyone just needs to be patient as we roll things out, and we have every interest in making sure that we prioritize the needs that are put forward by our MLAs.
Next at the mic.
Lana Smith, Globe and Mail. Premier, I wanted to ask you about the RCMP investigation, and I hope you can just answer this with a simple yes or no. I'm wondering if any high-level officials, current or former, from your government, including yourself or from AHS, have been questioned by the RCMP?
No.
Not yet? Do you know if they are going to?
You asked for a yes or no, I gave you the no.
All right, thanks. Second question, switching to a different topic. On Monday, you told media that MH Care was still working with Health Canada since 2023 to put forward an application to bring in IV acetaminophen to Alberta. We've asked Health Canada this week and also numerous times over the past year whether or not they've received an application from Alberta government, from MH Care, or from Atabay. The answer every single time, including this week, was no. There has been no application put forward. So can you be more specific about how exactly this $49 million that's being held onto by MH Care of government money is going to be utilized to benefit Albertans?
The ask is for a high an acetaminophen that could be used as a replacement, high dosage acetaminophen that could be used as a replacement for opioids in hospital use. My understanding is they began the process in November of 2023. Health Canada came back and gave them a different process they wanted to follow, which submitted another application in November 2024. We've assembled the paperwork, and as I understand it, the Health Minister is working on getting that available to the media as soon as she can.
Thank you, Lana. We're going to move to our next question. I see you have a lot of your colleagues behind you, and we have the full 9 schools.
Once the paperwork is out, you'll see the difference. There's always 2 sides to a story. Maybe you're not getting full information. So
thank you, Lana. Let's go to our next question at the mic.
As I did mention, yes, the Health Minister is assembling that information. I gave you what I have been briefed on, and we'd be happy to get that information out to you. I'm not sure of the timing on that, but yes, we intend to make sure everyone has full information.
Next at the mic, and then we'll take a couple from the phones.
Aaron Collins from CBC National News. Thanks for taking my question, Premier. I want to turn back to the announcement of the federal cabinet. Mark Carney has pushed Stephen Guilbeault out of the environment file, said he's going to get rid of the consumer carbon tax, but he still doesn't have any ministers, or only 2 ministers west of Ontario. I'm just curious what your sense is on what this says about his attempts to sort of reach out to Western Canada to make bridges to voters here and to this region.
Well, look, we had a problem in Parks Canada with them not clearing away forested areas, which has resulted in a wreck in Waterton, a wreck in Jasper, and we hope we don't have a wreck in Banff. So it's certainly not going to be, it's going to be soft comfort for everyone to see that Monsieur Guilbeault still maintains a position in Parks Canada. We've got a lot of work to do. We're about to enter into fire season, and I would hope that we would be able to move very quickly on securing those towns so that they don't face a fire threat. So that would be one thing I'd say. I think that the Prime Minister has made his views very clear about keeping oil and gas in the ground. He's made his views very clear about he not wanting a transparent carbon tax. He wants a hidden one. So I don't think it does Alberta any good if we end up seeing massive increases to industrial carbon taxes. It's been quoted many times saying he thinks that the carbon tax is too low. So I'm going to just reserve judgment. I had a whole range of things that are problematic with the federal government, from emissions caps to tanker bans off the West Coast, the inability to approve pipelines, getting approvals and then having them pulled, having a convoluted regulatory process that makes it impossible to get new pipelines built, continued threats of regulating our power grid, continued threats of regulating our industry, continued threats of export taxes, cutting off energy. Like I haven't really seen any change that would lead me to be encouraged that we're going to have a reset on our relationship. So we need an election, and that's how it needs to get sorted out.
Switching topics a little bit, I understand your government sort of actively recruited Ms. Mentzelopoulos to be the CEO of AHS. Your statement of defense from both AHS and Alberta Health alleges that she was incompetent and failed to fulfill her responsibilities. So just trying to square the circle on that. I mean, if that's the case, why did you push so hard for her to be in that position in the first place? And is that a recruitment failure?
We have a refocusing plan. You know, we had hoped, having worked with the individual for as long as we did. She was in a position where she knew what our refocusing was, and you can read her own statement of claim that about her resistance to having several of the functions moved to Alberta Health. That was very transparent from the time I wrote my mandate letter to the time that we announced the refocusing in November to when the individual was first hired. It was very transparent what we were doing, and you can just read her statement of claim to show where she says in her own words the many, many ways in which she felt that was diminishing her role. But we were transparent from the start. It's unfortunate that we weren't able to be able to move forward with that. But we now have new leadership, and we're going to. We know that we need to have a separation of the purchaser and provider. You cannot have a provider of health services making decisions about their competitors. I mean, we've got a couple of charter schools here today. You wouldn't have one of the public boards telling them whether or not they'd be allowed to build a school. That's our job as the province. It's part of the reason why we have a separation. We have a public board, a Catholic board, and charter boards. It's the same thing that we have in healthcare. We have a public board, we have Covenant, and we have charter surgical centers. They all need to be able to report directly to the province, and one shouldn't be trying to stop the other one from operating. That's what we were observing. That was the problem that we were trying to solve, and we're going to continue going forward with that refocusing.